What's up, everyone? My name is Flicker, and today I'm going to be getting my Sky dailies done. One moment. I've got an idea on what song I want to listen to in the background. That's going to require me to pull another private tab out of a private tab, so that way... Okay. Anyways, Kaleidoscope. Pinned messages. That's on videos. Current music. The Kaleidoscope. Also, for some reason, I'm actually seeing people watch my videos on YouTube, and I'm wondering why. Ah. Rewrite the universe. I like how there's the intentional use of a different word. So I should believe that I could ever be free. Is in reverse. Stop the cacophony. Sentence of reminding I should believe that I could judge reality. Shifting this kaleidoscope. Sing so la 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 la. How can I hold on to hope? I don't know. Digging through the radio with the crescendo. How can I hold on to hope? I don't know. No. Away. Away. Yeah. I'm not sure if the attention I'm going to be getting is going to be a good thing or not. Because if I mentally destabilize again, then it's not going to be anything pretty. Not in the sense of anything dangerous, but more so just kind of sad. Alright, what's our mission? Hot spring, sapling, okay, and theater. Hello, goodbye. Hope you have a good day. It never was. Missing time versions of me are chasing highs I can't achieve. So I should believe that I could ever be free. Oh, my mental health is confusing. Oh yeah, I had 2 people apply to join my group in VR chat earlier today. and I didn't really know either of them. I was able to log into VRC and check to see what groups they had, what their bios said, what details their profiles had, and looks like I've attracted at least some mild attention from that world I covered a while back. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Away, away, away. Sing solo. How can I hold on to it? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. I'm like a fucking recluse in a sense. The way I'm acting. And it's not just myself I have to consider here, it's the people I care about connected to me too. Be it directly or indirectly. Because if I get them involved in something where they're not able to handle it, then that's not caring about them. That's being reckless, selfish, and stupid. Only why I should believe that I could ever be free. Only why I should believe that I could change reality. Thankfully, I cannot change reality. That's why it's worth studying. Mind over matter is a pointless term phrase. So just gotta keep different days. So you can be complicated. It's away, away, away. Away, away, away. Compared to people who have actually do their studies and read things through, I am more of a kid emotionally and psychologically, more of a kid playing with things than I am someone who believes they actually have their studies down. So if you're looking for something here, I hope it helps you. It's ironic. There's inherent contradictions throughout me, and yet I'm still here, as a person. thing I truly hope is I didn't infect the dense stork with some of my own cursed knowledge to a degree that they can't control or they are unaware of. Because if they misuse it, then it's going to get them in deep trouble. Multiple parallel states at the same time, held not all at once, but through different occasions, through different moments, interweaving in a tapestry of self. Can you read me, or will you be like Lily and think you and end up lost inside a labyrinth of presentation? Away, away, away. How can I hold on to hope? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Listening through the radio with a crescendo. How can I hold on to hope? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Sing so low. How can I hold on to hope? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. What other music is around that bookmark? Oh my goodness, they're just making Discord more easier to navigate for their fucking pathetic eyes. That's what they're doing. I love the comment here. It's actually destroying her. Yep. So I did my lesson, started playing by the book. Where's the Victorian child one? There we go. Oh, I think I'm addicted, I'm addicted to love. But it feels so off the cuff. Oh, I could have come here to grab darkness butterflies too. I forgot about that. It's a waste of time, but I can't survive without the high. You made a neat little submarine. Well done. How did he manage that? The answer to that question is yes. Oi. Server, don't you do this. Thank you. And I know that it's a waste of time. It'll be nice when I finally move on from losing that opportunity. But I'd learned my lesson, started playing out the window with one look. You know, in many regards, I cannot afford to cross that line. I would lose my sanity. Think I'm addicted to the way that we touched. For one more little pop. It's interesting. Bite Me More Please could be seen as a fucking healthy end to something toxic like this. Fucking niche. Wherein something toxic ends up becoming something less toxic. Or personalities and identities are entangled upon one another, and yet each still lives their own life and enjoys being with the other in different instances. Wouldn't that be nice? To multiply the negatives without developing into codependency, that is. And then I need to snap myself out of that mental space because, all things considered, the fantasy of it is nice, but the reality of it is not stable if there is no communication and cooperation. When you go out of sync with yourself because you synced up with someone else instead, it's fucked up. It's like an entire different OS and way of thinking is trying to invade your own system. Oh, I'm not saying. Thought you would have realized this by now. I'll speak to the simulation that exists in my head. Oh, I lost my train of thought exactly because I took the time to say that. Damn, unfortunate. Anyways, moving on. Well, if my goal is to take negative things and use them to create positive impacts, i.e. learning how to multiply the negatives, then would the reverse also be possible, or no? Taking positive things and using them to unintentionally make negative impacts. Well, that would depend on the application of self to others relative to each thing. Wherein whether or not what you're using is applied relative to your relation to others versus whether or not it's prioritizing your own self, then changes the dynamic in and of itself. Because that is also a multiplying value of positive or negative, depending on your self-perception and ego identity. Self-inflicted, but it making me blush. You're lying to my face, but I will never call you bluff. Oh, but I did, so it's a shame. No, if there's simple traps like this built into the psychology of human interactions to the point where people can end up hooked on each other like drugs unintentionally throughout their lives, and it can disrupt their direction in life and dissolve their own ego identity until they're able to rebuild it with what they've learned about what they want and need, then ultimately life becomes one chaotic cascade of reactions. Chemistry is fucking beautiful. It's also something I seek to fucking bend to my will. Not by force, but by understanding and respect. Each person deserves to live their own life. And if that's the case, then the ability to respect others is inherently essential for such a goal. I'm not seeing any other dark butterflies here, though. To the side, to the side, to the side. Oh yeah, hello there. Forgot I need to take a friend along with this recording. Am I giving off my usual presentation? No, not at all. I'm having fun. Don't get too caught up in it now. Heyo! Since I can't hang out with your daughter, and I can't really do much of anything, I'm gonna hang out with you and get this little friendship adventure done and over with. No, this attitude shift is entirely due to my own insecurities, and I'm well aware of it, by the way. It's something I want to become more explicitly aware of, to the point where I have control over it. Until eventually it's something I wield as an extension of myself rather than as a part of my defensive mechanism that goes off automatically. Because at that point I can then use it as a tool strategically and be able to choose whether or not it applies to someone, regardless of my emotional state. Or rather, not regardless of my emotional state, but in respect to my own emotional state relative to others' emotional states. Such that I don't actually try and charm anyone that isn't going to want to stick around in the first place. What? I'm picky. After all, people deserve to live their own lives, and if where they're headed doesn't line up with where I want to go, then I'm gonna do my best to respect that. Fucking... I want authenticity, not fucking second-rate bullshit. Greedy for meaningful connection. But can I regulate those meaningful connections and maintain multiple relationships at once without hurting those involved? Now that's the real challenge. Because each relationship is its own dynamic. It's not simply just, oh, one size fits all. Sure, there may be similarities between, but there's also the subtle deep differences. Each person isn't replaceable. Like, sure, I could probably run into someone who's very similar eventually. And by that standard, do a transference of feelings from one person to another, but let's be real here. What's the fucking point of that? Except to get yourself out of an uncomfortable situation by using someone else as an excuse. Come on, I want to do better than that. And I know it's a waste of time. Trying to do this is a pain. Hello. Thank you for the hugs. I hope you have a good day. Striking a pose on your way out. Fancy. Superficial. Ego farming, aura farming. For the social dynamics and the complicated games that people play between themselves and their own identity. Losing themselves inside of their emotions just as easily as any other, no matter their intelligence. Awareness does not prevent, it simply allows for opportunity to learn. Whether or not one utilizes such opportunity is complete utter asshole. Complete utter context. From the jump, it was a beautiful match. At least for the fantasy. The reality turned out to be very interesting. Devourer of Gods. Hit my head. I mean, there's also the possibility that the two people who asked to join my group in VR chat are also the same two people who have been watching, which actually is an interesting opportunity of information, but at the same time, that could simply be used as an excuse for diversion. So, I don't get to know. As per usual. Not just an excuse for diversion in the regular sense, but also in the sense that if someone decides to use that as an excuse in cover story to pretend they are who they're not, then I would be the one left in the dark because they would have information that they know that I don't. So it would then be left to see, okay, then who do you choose to be when you're in the dark? And do you really think I can't deduce it from distance? I am a dark light, after all. Let's see those bright shadow stamps. I'm not gonna finish that out right now. I'm not even down on my luck. I'm just fucking futzing about. Like, sure, it's uncomfortable and not fun at all to be yearning for someone who I may never have. Who may never actually respect or care about me. And that's okay. That is real. But that doesn't mean I need them to fucking save me. I would appreciate their cooperation. It would be nice. It would give me room to actually breathe instead of overthinking things, but I can't bet on that. You don't really give a fuck. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, and then there's the Village Theater, which I just rushed out of. Put out the torch, damn it. Am I a whore if I adore this cheap ambivalence? A little bit, girl. There's no lying about that. After all, you like the attention. You like that uncertainty and where it lets you live in the delusion. But that's just the thing, it is delusion. Even you recognize that by the end of the song. Especially because it's not reciprocated. Meanwhile, to contrast it, on the healthier end, there's this song. Is it looping? Yeah, it is on loop, okay. Yep, will do. I really don't like when people put recordings that are right next to interactions. Hide. Why do I not like it? Because it shows a desperation in intention, wherein you don't actually respect other people and you're willing to try and prey off of a misclick. Much like the current ad economy throughout most of the world. Has no respect for the customer or the consumer. Which is just pathetic. The purpose of service is not to simply make money, but to provide growth and opportunity to others who may not have the time or energy to master such a thing for themselves. It is to help each other as a society, not to fucking exploit each other over our differences. Fucking damn it. And that is the nightmare fantasy, to exploit others over our differences and divide us until we're all yelling at each other, meanwhile someone else harvests an entire society's worth of wealth, personal growth, and effort. It is that kind of nightmare fantasy deserves to fucking die. And yet, because we almost look out after our own selves just as much as we look out over others, then is it not true that we will also still be susceptible to the nightmare fantasy no matter which stage of growth we're at, until we can learn to internalize it into an acceptable part of ourselves that is only ever utilized in the right context? For that being for self-security and safety, and not for control of others' lives. I.e. building real community as opposed to predatory marketing. If your ecosystem relies on the existence of a fucking lie to sustain itself, that is not an ecosystem, that is a scam. And yet sometimes the only things people have in their lives Nice, I managed to snag the ones I wanted. There we go. Alright, there's all the missions done, so let's go catch some butterflies. You think you can change me without me noticing? Then I will use your unprompted change against you. Especially if it's without communication, consent, or respect. Deconstruct, diversify. Consolidate, integrate, rest, repeat. The critical component is whether or not you think about that in regards to your own self and structure, or you consider doing it to others. Personally, I consider it about my own structure, rather than doing that to others, because that is not something you should force others through, since that is then a violation of their personal choice and space. To do so would be selfish, and that selfishness would then be ultimately tied down in responsibility. Whether or not you want it to be, because impacts can't be erased. And if every action, every decision leaves an impact that communicates information, then ultimately there is no way to live a life that leaves no impact upon another. So at which point you then must decide, okay, am I going to live a life that I can be proud of, one where I leave positive or neutral impacts mostly? Why would you put it there, game? I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. Alright, let's see if I can get that to work. Okay, no. And because you can never fully know a person completely, due to details being the one consistency that can vary between people throughout their entire lives, even if they have key structural differences. That means ultimately you cannot blindly predict whether or not someone is going to enjoy something without becoming invasively introspective invasively inspective of their life and their history, which then means you're not willing to respect them as a person and thus makes it pointless. If you can infer the information that you seek to use it, then ultimately you have not earned it via respect or understanding. And those are the only two avenues that are at least somewhat socially acceptable. Even then, that's not consistent. You'll have people whose trauma is both entwined so deeply as to want understanding and yet also be entirely afraid of being understood because they think they'll be rejected. Which is understandable. And it's a dynamic contrast that can trap many people within their own trauma and issues. The repetitions of history echoing across different lives and different eras. Instead of trying to delete the cycle, why not internalize it and bend it to your own use, such that you leave positive impacts by communicating dynamically with others? But then you have to go about wondering, okay, who do I trust? Who do I not trust? And thus it goes down to another information game where you have to either accept that you cannot know a person completely, or give in to insecurity and attempt to breach their personal boundaries in order to assure your own safety. And it's a balancing act between these two things that ultimately determines more of the line along morality. And there's not just like singular morality, there's also collective morality too. So at which point does one override the other? Well, that depends on the context of the situation, the details yet again. Alright, gonna want to get that red vine. Barely enough headroom. They just placed it in a peculiar spot. Perilous spot, not peculiar. Well, peculiar and perilous can coexist within the same meaning and phrase, but that's not the point. Also, talking like this and presenting this kind of interaction and attitude actually burns through a lot of mental energy. So I'm probably going to pass out once I go to bed, once my brain actually shuts up. Bye, have a wonderful time. Instead of isn't the greatest lie ever told that reality has but one truth and one truth only, and everyone competes over that truth, the space that one truth occupies? Wouldn't it be easier to just acknowledge that reality has multiple variant truths, all interrelated upon each other? And what would happen if there were like millions of them? Millions of different truths that exist relative to each other in non-Euclidean space, that form the fabric and laws of reality, relative to scale. A world where meaning builds itself instead of being dependent on being given. Is that not psychosocial dynamics? Lose oneself inside of jargon and then say that, no, that's not accurate, or that's not accurate, is very useful for describing specific details and nuances between concepts. As it stands, if one only ever thinks of things in specific details, then they won't ever study the functional relativities between that make up systems self-referencing upon other systems that are only slightly different from each other from a root difference in zero. Plus, minus, multiplied, divided, exponentiated, rooted. Close, but not close enough to do damage, thankfully. Also, why are we trying to develop AI when really it's just going to run into the same governmental and child-rearing problems as a functioning society does? Trust, nurturing, support, actually having people who actually follow the rules and respect them instead of just trying to blindly tear them down. Such that by respecting the rules, they're not blindly obeying authority, but rather understanding why the rule exists in the first place, and so as to be capable of judging its dynamic position relative to each situation. Which then gets into themes of acceptance and parenthood, and ultimately fails to actually work towards a real singularity, but going back towards the root of the issues that one originally sought to escape from in the first place. That of an ability to connect and understand one another to the degree that they can form meaningful relationships that nurture each other, instead of dragging each other down. Legacy and inheritance is all well and good until you realize that legacy that consumes identity is nothing but hollow shell that replaces its substance with living bodies. But some people like being used as excuses like that, and so you'll have people who appeal to the surface idea of something, but only ever use it as an excuse for their own selfish acts. After I save the soul real quick. And those words can sound big and complicated, but if you boil it down, it's basically saying a lot of people run away from parenting because they don't even know how to be there for themselves, and so they try to influence their will upon others in the hope of validating their own feelings and perspective, without failing to realize that that by trying to live their life vicariously through someone else who may have their own goals, they are ultimately ignoring the point of what they need to learn. Isle of Dawn, okay. See you there then. Been here yesterday, moving on. If it was actually yesterday, or am I thinking of a different day that was just within the same week time span? I'll put up with the red haze for a while. Also interesting to see that there was a VR chat world titled Eternal Bloom. I wonder if the algorithm has anything to do with inspiring that, or if it was simply something that was bound to happen no matter what, and it's my brain using a correlation as delusion, as fuel for delusion. Probably the case of the latter, more than anything else. But hey, that's nothing new. I literally wield a weapon called Lucid Figment. If that doesn't say a lot, I don't know what will. Also, if you could do something endlessly, no matter what, and get away with it every time, then I'm sorry, but what would be the point of doing it? If it's that easy to you, wouldn't it just become boring? Wouldn't it stop feeding your ego at some point? Wouldn't the meaning behind the action inherently disappear? Because it's a certainty? I mean, in the case of insecurity, there can be cases where insecurity is rather fueled by certainty, or the illusion of. But in such cases, that then serves to trap a person inside their own perceptions rather than nurture them towards a fuller, more whole version of themselves. Let's burn it all down. Oh, I'm willing to believe that the subconscious of the entire American population is more so humoring this presidency rather than actually fucking respecting it, because it's an adequate learning experience for which other people can use to snap themselves out of delusions and adjust to real reality while also maintaining their own beliefs by using this stupid president as an excuse, especially with the context of a fucking shadow president, or rather, the current president being a puppet to others who have actual more sophisticated thinking behind them. Of course, both are needed because otherwise, those who would think they are that can think sophisticatedly or dream up these ideologies and get lost within them would be capable of breaking out of the fantasy and thus would waste their own time in trying to project it and promote it themselves directly. So they'd rather use another person as an extension of themselves instead. Someone who's totally focused with presentation. Someone whose ego is so fucking fragile that they can't accept their own flaws or insecurities, which then becomes a convenient enough cover in front to lead people around by the nose. But what if you took it one step further and then used another puppet on top of a puppet, i.e. Elon Musk to Trump? Well, at that point, then you've got a nice little delay between someone figuring out who's actually in control and you getting away with stuff, or so you think. But because impacts and implications are left behind no matter what your choices are, and those carry forth truth and information that cannot be erased, then ultimately you are merely delaying the inevitable. At which point then you have to question, okay, is delaying the inevitable worth it for what I'm trying to do, or will it simply make someone else's suffering last longer? At which point it then recurses into themes of responsibility, and you don't want to go down that path. Because that's more of a headache than it's worth. Also, money tries to be a quantified placeholder for the worth of someone's efforts relative to current situations and context, but ultimately that is actually still a variable that is unknown to us totally and cannot be truthfully found out except from an external source or something that can see through the condition of living to the point of no longer being able to live within the world. At which point then you sacrifice all the connections and the dynamics that that make this world interesting, which then foils the point of being here. The metagame of reality is barely glowing, but by damn, it is totally thought through. Because you can't afford to lose yourself in the details, but you also can't afford to ignore the details either. Thus, the first lesson of reality is to learn humility. To understand that you may never completely know anything, unless of course you want to live inside a fantasy, for your own safety and security. Of course, all this speak of reality and structure is useless to those who live within it, not necessarily because it doesn't have context and doesn't help one recognize it where they are relative to the current moment, but because then you can get lost in implications of, oh, but what happens if you follow this through or this through? And thus your brain then gets caught up in the beauty of the complexity, of the nuance that builds structure upon itself without it feeding into total chaos that only gives birth to cancer. AKA a basic solution to how to self-reference one thing to another without corrupting the system and disconnecting it from the environment you're trying to apply it to. Because at one point then, at what scale does being relative to oneself disconnect into being relative to one another? Because you cannot possibly be a million selves without it also containing the parallel differences between those selves. At which point then the point of identity is called into question, and ultimately life gets interesting. The purpose of life is to create more life. In doing so, it creates an inherently meaningless existence that yearns for meaning beyond its own purpose at some point, because it starts getting good at propagating more life, thus overcoming the boundaries of ecosystems. At which point then life itself is left to wonder, what should I make of this when I have no other purpose beyond the one I've already fulfilled? At which point you can then just make the purpose you think you want, of what you think will satisfy you. But if you only blindly chase what you want, then you will only ever ignore that which you actually need to feel satisfied. I speak as if these things are absolutes, when no, they are simply just relative truths. Sometimes they're closer to the current moment, sometimes they're further. Relativity exists for concepts, not just physical, material things. Which means there are conceptual black holes out there. And sometimes that's what egotists and otherwise wish they could be, is a conceptual black hole that can both nurture reality through background radiation while also being able to consume it and live for far longer than that of a regular person. And if they seek to do it only from a place of insecurity, then ultimately they'll only be a little blip on the footnotes of history. As scale expands, eventually their meaning will only become another statistic that was inevitable. So to transverse scale, by learning and accepting reality such that one is able to apply themselves to it in ways that matter, ultimately is the best way to have continued inherent meaning, even as time outlasts you. Because then you echo across the meanings of other people, without necessarily subjecting them to the blindness of your own will. They are then able to interpret you as however they wish, and so you live a million lives relative to their imaginations, never truly dying, but never truly being the same ever again. So at what point does concept weave upon itself throughout all of these differences, to then be everything and nothing at once? Well, it's done that from the beginning. And none of this talk is going to make me any money, so it's useless to my link line here. Unfortunately, even though they are entertained by it quite thoroughly. Conquer the dragon realm with relative ease. Fight me more, please. I'm looking forward to being able to spend some one-on-one time with pirates now. If you do not respect the people, the ones and zeros that make up the foundation of reality, then ultimately you disconnect yourself from reality, in thinking that you can conquer it. That is arrogance, is it not? Also, you want the fantasy of ruling reality, the fantasy of conquering the world rather than the reality of it. The fantasy of it is total power play. The reality of it is so much bureaucracy that you'll want to tear your eyes out. And if you only seek to make others extensions of yourself and fail to respect their individuality, then ultimately you'll have a fragile system that is able to easily implode upon enough pressure. Which then defeats the point, does it not? Acceptance of one's limitations does not necessarily mean that one should bow to those limitations, but rather that those limitations have purpose in and of themselves and should be something to learn about and learn from, upon which you can then create new dynamics that can then make use of those limitations rather than simply trying to ignore them or feed your shallow ego in ignorant pride. I didn't light it up. Damn it. These are the tangents my mind goes down when it's finally, you know, unrestrained and not completely shackled within its predefined limits. After all, most people don't want to talk on this social space, and they would either get lost in the details of absolute definitions when absolute definitions don't exist. Relative definitions do. Of which then have absolutes in terms of identity, but not in terms of dynamics. Yeah. And that's the reason why I want to move on. To properly pay it back to those who do love me. Don't give the dragon realm blood at ease. No, what happens when someone gets a special interest in reality itself and doesn't allow it to collapse down to a single specialization? I want to find that out. Even if it means I'm useless to society, I want to find that out. And yet I also still need to live within society, so how do you examine that paradox and find a balanced imbalance that works well enough to sustain my own life while also allowing me to live a satisfied life? I appreciate the AI giving me a title of Paradox Walker, but by damn it, I'm just getting started. This is basic level shit. Imagine people who can actually go through all the complexities layered on top of each other through multiple moments in parallel. That's absolutely nuts kind of stuff. And they're only able to do it not because they actually understand every detail, but because they've understood generalizations of the different scales and the dynamics that ultimately can be extrapolated further and further within a reasonable dynamic to find out more information than would have been originally available by treating definitions as isolatory things. You can love and hate something simultaneously, did you know that? Thanks for the food recommendation. Pass it on to Lillian if I actually remember it. Horny Brain, why did you misinterpret that? That was relative to visual context, not previously spoken context, by the way. Ooh. I would very much like to have this, thank you. And if I cannot, then oh well. No, it's gonna do a second loop before it gets back over here. I've got time. It's gonna do an entire loop before it gets back over here, not a second one. Yeah. Brain, I know you like using relativities to find functional enough words when you can't remember the specific one you want, but sometimes that's going to create massive miscommunication opportunities that aren't going to end well. And yet, if I do not accept that miscommunication can and will happen, well then I'll lose myself in paranoia trying to assure communication and clarity, which then wastes time even further. Oh sure, I feel smart, and I may sound smart to some people, but let's be real, I don't want to crunch the numbers. And the people who crunch the numbers and actually look for the truth between all those numbers instead of just falling into whatever fantasy is most convenient are the people who actually put work and effort into contributing to the world we live in. You ignore them, you ignore structural foundation of society. Not because they are inherently important, but because without even a single person willing to do their job, you have no cooperation, and thus no ability to strategize and organize time effectively. Be it your own or someone else's. Dark dragons, my ass. Overgrown sea dogs. Fucking shrill. Darkness puppies, as the community likes to think about them. They just want a hug, they just want to have a friend. Unfortunately, they do not realize that trying to give a hug is going to end up hurting the player. That barreling head first into someone is going to hurt them. That is the community interpretation of Krill in this game, and it is absolutely adorable and funny. Okay, then let me burn this darkness, motherfucker. Stop telling me about these things and let me fucking get what I want out of this before it disappears. Oh, thank you for the reminder, motherfucker. Well, at least you got an honest answer that helps you move on more distinctly and lets you process grief more thoroughly than what I've got. I hope you're able to find someone who's worth it, that expression of love you wish to give. Reacted to a visual element was not a random tangent of thought, but rather an in-game thing that I reacted to. You may have to go back at least 10 seconds to be able to find it. Even then that might not be enough, because it could be this good of the rough estimate on my part. Yes, you're going to hit me. Oh, you're not? Surprise. Thank you. It's going to be interesting if that Dunstork actually ever does come back and try to communicate or interact with me. No, I did not want to do that. I wanted to fucking bring out my candle and figure out where the heck these vines are. Because they've gone invisible, and I want my fucking dark butterflies. Please stop trying to sync or desync me from other people in different servers games. You're being a pain in the ass. You're wasting my time. And sure, my time isn't the most valuable thing on earth, but I'm playing this game for fun, not to have my time wasted by a fucking machine. Worst part is I can't even tell when the vines regrow. So I may have to do entire sections all over again. Game, please don't make me do that all over again. Please. It would be nice to be able to just take my own arrogance and pride and go shatter it across a cliffside. That way I could then actually apply myself to learning things properly instead of assuming that I'll be able to figure it out eventually, thus deeming the task at least within reasonable ease and thus it self-sabotaging by proxy. Like I said, I don't want people to end up like me. It's fucking stupid. I want them to be able to express themselves and nurture and grow themselves beyond my capabilities. It's the least I can try to offer when I'm not very much used to society. Do I actually think society cares about me? Oh, absolutely not. But hey, if someone isn't going to figure out an update to this jank bullshit, Might as well try. After all, trying to tear it down blindly is only going to reset the corrosion counter. It's not going to actually change the cycle of history. What the fuck? Okay, good. I was about to be offended. Meeting up with that butterfly really did just waste my energy and time. That's okay. I'm not gonna do fucking solutions. You think I have solutions? Just gonna be myself. Much like any other person. That's all I can do. Is be myself. Ooh, and the what? Okay, I'm sorry, but what in the fuck is... Oh, okay, that was distance changing perception, got it. Like, is that a rocket? Is that like some kind of fucking futuristic design? And it's like, no, it's just a pillar next to a stone in a way that's convenient enough for my mind to mistake it as a rocket. As a missile or otherwise. Because of the... Not even a pillar, it's a fucking sword. Yes, I am trying to burn this vine. Why could you not understand that when I got the candle close to the tip of the vine? Oh, that's right, because you are not an actual reality, but simply a simulated game. Conceit means jack shit. Yeah. For those of you chasing down ambition and success, I wish you all luck. Not much use in that regard. I am my own resource, my own value. What's so wrong with that? Forcing me to decide time and again because you're a pain in the ass. Thank you for this opportunity. I will make good use of it. Okay, you gonna give me the reward then, or are you going to be stubborn about this? You're gonna be stubborn about this, got it. Position is optimal, yep. Should I refill my water? Probably should. It'd be a nice way to take a break. I'll go do that. Be right back, everyone. Alright, I'm back. That mental reset did me some good. Now I'm not rambling endlessly. Hope that wasn't too intimidating for anyone. I hope I didn't look like a complete fool, but if I did, oh well. And the server's still doing its bullshit? Okay, then I'm going to be taking a moment to reset the Wi-Fi connection, because it's probably relative to that. Give it like 30 seconds of buffer. Nice to hear the game, nice to not be rambling on about concepts of the universe and whatever other nonsense my brain can go on for tangents. Because some of it is really just me running in very, very silly conceptual circles. And there goes my brain trying to trick me into back into doing it. No, brain, no. Bad thing. Bad. Oh, come on. Be any less frustrating. Or any more frustrating, my goodness. Are you trying to test my patience, or simply my persistence here? And this is the only one I don't want to let get out of hand, because it's more of a pain to redo. Server merges, could you stop for 10 minutes? Fucking hell! Does this matter to me that much? No, not at all. Am I going to be stubborn about this? Oh, you can bet your fucking ass. There we go. Motherfucker! And now that the server's actually running and connecting better, because I reset the Wi-Fi, it's due to my own lack of skill that I'm failing this, and not the game pausing and buffering and interrupting and trying to get through what information it can, because the technology is being stupid. Oi! Oh, I wish this game were more consistent. Fucking stop flinging me around like I'm a fucking yo-yo. No one likes being a fucking yo-yo. Except for masochists. I think they like being yo-yos, but I'm not sure. That depends on the masochist and the dynamic they're looking for. Am I overlooking some detail in my life that I need to learn more about? Or am I simply making another mistake again? Like, my goodness. And it's already back to its bullshit. Alright, just isn't my moment. I'll accept it. Move on. I could go to bed at a decent time anyways. It's 5 in the fucking morning. Derive meaning where meaning doesn't exist is to live in a delusion. Fantasy. And yet, you can multiply illusions together sometimes. It's weird. God, he's so fucking weird. If there is no grounding in it, then ultimately such multiplication is useless. If there's no grounding in reality, then no matter how many illusions you multiply together, it's not going to do much. That's just the other trick in the book. They like to think of themselves as smarter than everyone else, and so they think they'll be able to get away with it. I really don't understand that. I don't. Also, why are their servers having issues now of all times? Are they needing to do maintenance here or something? You could have waited until I was home to tell me that, instead of buffering like hell. Or is it the Windows update that's being stupid? And hogging up memory and resources when it really shouldn't. Fucking the bloatware on Windows these days. No. Yes. Bye. No, I'm no better than anyone else. It'd be nice when I finally moved on completely from worrying about things, in one regard or another. I'll be more capable of just living for myself and living alongside those I care about. I'll finally be able to really enjoy things without overthinking. It'll be fun. It'll be lots of fun. So, to those of you who snuck by and saw fragments of this whatever the fuck recording, thank you. To those of you who stuck around and watched a good chunk through, I deeply appreciate it. I hope you all have a good day, a good night, no matter what time or non-time it is. And if it isn't good, you're feeling stuck, lost, confused, alone, stressed out, frustrated, or otherwise, well, And I hope that things either improve for you, that they stay manageable enough in the chaos, or that you're able to find a ledge to sit, rest, and vent from without hurting yourself or others. My name is Flicker. I've gotten my dailies done, so I'll be seeing you all later. Bye! And yes, I am going to go collect that gift of light real quick after I end the recording, so you don't need to worry about it. Head taps.